Hello, everybody, and welcome to Answer the Call. This week's topic is, should we have more progression in Star Citizen 3.5? But as always, before we get into that topic, we're going to talk about last week's topic a little bit, but not so much today. So last week, we talked about your responses to Star Citizen's community engagement. I made a video about it, and I figured I would open up the calls to you guys and see what you thought about it, basically. But I don't want to harp on it really at all for this show because that show was 2.5 hours long. So I'm not really going to go back to your comments and discuss them. They were all relatively similar to the comments that were on the video that I made. So yeah, for the most part, we all kind of agree that there's something lacking with Star Citizen's community content. And we all had our kind of opinions on what those things would be, basically. The one thing I do want to talk about is that it was 2.5 hours, and that's unacceptable. I was extremely tired. I had a really, really, really rough night of work before that day, and I can't make promises that it won't happen again, but I promise I will make my maximum effort so it doesn't happen again. So today's topic, we'll get back to the old ATC format of about an hour, one set topic. And even though today's topic is sort of broad, and stick to it. So if you guys start getting off, I'm gonna moderate. So if I do interrupt you, it's because I'm moderating you down to back to the topic. Okay. So again, today's topic is, should we have more progression in Star Citizen 3.5? Now, what I mean by that is something to progress towards, because I don't want to take away from some of the work that's gone into 3.5, which has been fantastic. Is mission progression and progression in making more money in the game is, I think, done really, really well. I think they've made progression towards the dynamic economy with the new drug trade, although I have some issues with that as well. I think maybe it wasn't the right time for it necessarily, but again, that's a bit off topic. The bounty missions and the assassination missions now progress as you do them. You make more money, and the ships that you go up against get increasingly more difficult. So for those of you guys that don't know, and I will be making a video on this in the future, is that bounty and assassination missions will eventually lead you to either a pirate bounty of a hammerhead, or a Crusader security. I believe it's Crusader, but a Hurston or Crusader security hammerhead that you're going to be up against. So that's some pretty cool progression that's in the game, right? So should we have more of it? And the kind of thing that I want to be focused on today is something to work towards. So you do these missions and you make more money each time you do a bounty mission, let's say, or you make money cargo hauling, or you make money mining, and so on, all the different ways that you can make money in the game. What do you do with that money, right? We have ship components, and we have ships that are purchasable in game. And I was going to title, Did Star Citizen drop the ball in 3.5 on progression, something like that. And I really think that they did. And I really think that they dropped the ball here. The main thing that I think they dropped the ball on is with the ships. We have the same exact ships for purchase, with one addition. You can get the Anvil Hawk at the ArcCorp landing zone. One ship at ArcCorp. That's it. So do I think they dropped the ball? Absolutely. They say that, you could purchase ships in the game. Well, great. If you want, they can have all sorts of reasons of why they haven't added them, and I think most of them are probably so they can make money, which is not a negative. Again, we want them to make money. We want them to continue the development of the game, and we know it's going to take money to do so, right? But what I would argue is, oh yeah, and they added the Grey Cat too. I see that in Twitch chat. Ooh, wow. That's a Teach's ship shop for those of you guys that don't know that. But the main issue that I have is, why wouldn't you maybe swap around what ships are purchasable, right? So yes, we only want this many ships purchasable in the current iteration of Star Citizen because we still want people to go to the store and buy them, right? Cool. They're very expensive. So it takes some money to progress towards them. But if you've already progressed towards them in 3.4 and you've already dealt with the lack of persistence, what's the point of it, right? So again, I think a lot of the arguments against adding progression is the lack of persistence. But what I would argue is that if you just swap around the ships, and I think you should probably keep the Hammerhead, which is 22 million, and the Prospector, don't take those out, because the Hammerhead is a real reach to reach for, and the Prospector is obviously prevents the locking of mining behind a paywall. So I think those two are important to kind of keep them there. But other than that, why not just swap around what you can purchase, right? Like, let's take the Hornet out and replace it with a 300, or maybe a 300 is a bad example since it's a new ship that they would rather us purchase now, right? Maybe swap the Hornet out for an Avenger, and the Buccaneer for something else, right? Or the Hornet for a Gladius, anything. It doesn't matter. But just the idea of swapping what you currently have there, and then it almost like the way they do it with the subscribers, where every month it's a different ship. Well, why not every patch do a different subset of ships in the stores? I think that would be pretty cool. The other issue that I have with is the components, and this is something that I really want to open up to you and see if you have any ideas on what to do differently, is the components in the game currently. Obviously, everything isn't hooked up perfectly yet, but there basically is a set of components for each side, which are the unquestionably the best ones to use. And there's no reason why you would use anything different. So my argument would be, and this is something where I don't think it would take any too much, at least, additional development time, because I imagine they're just in the components, it's just values that would have to be changed, is creating a situation where if you were a cargo pilot, maybe you would use a different component versus a fighter pilot, right? Where in every situation you would use the same. So I find it a little bit weird where the cost of the components is actually quite expensive, and you're not really seeing that because we're still in the PTU and everybody starts with 5 million credits. So you don't really see that, like, I see a massive uptick in performance when I use these components, so I need to continue using them. Like, if you go to a bounty mission in an Aurora, you're going to kill that bounty every time with a stock Aurora MR. It may take you a little bit longer, but you're going to kill them every time. So where I don't see the progression is maybe the higher end stuff. And again, this is something I mentioned earlier in my stream, is that we don't have any higher grade than B. So we don't see what the really high end stuff does. But from C to B, I think you should see a significant, you should see a tangible difference. It maybe doesn't need to be significant, but you should actually see the difference between using a C grade and a B grade of any component, and same if you eventually go up to A. I think the categories of military, civilian, and all that stuff, they don't differentiate from each other. A noticeable difference. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Twitch chat. I don't think you see a noticeable difference between military grade and civilian and competition. But for those of you guys that don't know, like, specifically between the best power plants, the ACOM Starheart, and I can't remember what the military grade one is called, but the ACOM Starheart is a competition grade power plant that delivers, I think it's like 1,000 more power as its pool, but it delivers twice as much EM signature. But EM signature isn't relevant right now. So I think a lot of the time they're building out for the game 5 years from now. The Firefall Cascade, thank you. They're building out the game for the future, where if you want us to, like, play the game and enjoy it now, like, fudging a few numbers now I don't think is the end of the world. So that's kind of where I'm going to leave my thought process. And we currently only have one caller. Again, you guys can use hashtag, if you're live here, hashtag ATC17 on Twitter, and we will look at your tweets. If you're not comfortable calling in, I totally understand. Also, this topic is a little bit, It requires you to have played the game quite a bit and stuff like that. And you know what? Maybe you guys don't really have an opinion on this. For those of you guys that have been fans of Answer the Call for a while, I'm starting to pull at strings and try and figure out what to talk about each week, especially with Star Citizen 3.5, because I do think that they dropped the ball on this. But as far as everything else goes, the patch is basically what we expected it to be. It's kind of more of a quality of life patch, right? So I didn't expect much from this patch, but I think they could have started going in the right direction for progression as far as like ships and components go. But yeah. So anyway, we have our first caller, and his name is Arrogance. Gant. I always say Arrogance, and I'm always wrong. So we're going to pull him down. Oops. And I'm muted for some reason. Arrogance, can you hear me, buddy?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. I can hear you as well. Welcome to Answer the Call, man. How you doing?
Well, hi. I'm doing. You want me to present myself and how long I've been following?
Say that again?
Do you want me to present myself and how long I've been following the game for?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I think that's relevant.
Okay, so I am Gant. I've been looking at the game since 2012, I think.
Okay.
Since the start of the Kickstarter.
Okay.
And I've only just recently pledged right at SitCon.
Oh wow! So you've been following it for that long and just decided to pledge? What? Why? Why now and why not before?
Because I did not believe the game was in a state that I would enjoy playing it, in a sense.
Okay. And that's very fair.
Okay, so back on topic
Sure.
About progression. I do not think we need more progression in 3.5 right now.
Why? Especially for someone especially for someone that's just buying now. And I mean, this is where I think your background is relevant. Like, you haven't played as much as maybe someone like me, where this is something that obviously I'm getting a little bit bored with the game, and I would like something to work towards in the game, and I think it would be better, you know, if that's how it worked. But for someone who's newer, I can get it. So why don't you think it's relevant at all?
Because I think the game simply doesn't need it right now. 3.6 is the patch for that. 3.5 isn't. 3.5 is the flight rework and the hit mechanics.
Okay, but for someone who doesn't work on the flight mechanics, like the people who work on the economy, why wouldn't you play with the numbers a little bit and make there something to work towards? Because you can put a flight, like, here's my whole thing about this, and this is something that I've heard Chris say, and I agree with him 100%, and this has been going on for years, is they need concurrency in the game in order to test the game. So if there's no concurrency in the game because there's nothing to do and nothing to play and nothing to work towards, they don't get that concurrency, and then they don't get the kind of testing that they need to keep progressing the game forward. And that's why I argue that it needs to be there. I get that this is a quality of life patch, but yeah, I mean, like, what do you think about that?
Well, I do agree with that, but the issue is that all systems are not there for a proper progression to be implemented.
Why does it have to be proper?
Because that would mean more man hours.
Yeah,
I mean, we already have limited people working on Star Citizen right now, due to people working on Squadron.
Okay, but if you took one guy to go through a spreadsheet and change some numbers on some components, and one guy to swap out a few ships, so we have something new to progress towards for a single patch. That's, I mean, like, listen, the title is, should we have more progression in 3.5? You've answered that question. You say no. That's fine. But what I'm saying is just, like, the things that I suggested aren't like these major additions, right?
Yeah, I do understand. Yeah, for ships, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
For economy, it's a tad bit different because it's not as simple as changing a number in a spreadsheet. It's a whole balance that you have to keep working.
In what way? Because like what's
In a way that
changing numbers in the spreadsheet for, I don't know, the commodities. They did that for the drug trade. Obviously, they added to that, but they didn't appear, as far as I can tell, add to any of the non-illegal trade, I guess.
because if people gain money too fast, it could impact their bottom line. After all, they make money through.
Yeah, they make money through ship sales. I get it. But why should we be worried about their bottom line? That's not our job.
I mean, as players, as a player, I'm not, but it also means that they will have to work on something multiple times in a row or redo things due to because currently they're trying to balance the game for what it's going to be, not what it currently is.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's go back a little bit. Is they added progression to how you make money in the game. So they obviously see that they spent development time on adding progression to Star Citizen in this patch. But they didn't do it on what we buy. All I'm saying here is, why do one and not the other? And are we may be getting more of that in 3.6. Like, obviously there's this black market trade thing that we're going to see in 3.6.
Don't forget about that.
But ship renting kind of takes progression away. Like, I'll take ship, like, renting. Obviously we don't know exactly how the mechanic's going to work, but as far as ship renting goes, that basically ruins the economy in the whole ship purchasing economy. Who's going to purchase ships when ship renting is in? Why would you?
Well, why renting would not be part of the progress?
Because why would you buy if you can rent? In the way that the game works now is, okay, like, why do you buy a house versus renting it in real life? Because it eventually makes you money or whatever. But the idea of a video game is a little bit different of why you would buy versus rent. And like somebody in Twitch chat says, it would cost you more in the long term. Like, I get it. But I think renting is going to be a detrimental to the economy, or to progression in Star Citizen.
Why do you think so?
Because I think everyone's going to rent and no one's going to buy. So then all you have to do is make 5,000 credits in a day, and then you can continue playing that, using that ship.
But maybe you would be able to, for example, rent a prospector, make some money, and then buy another ship you could not buy otherwise.
That's true. But why couldn't you just... maybe are they going to limit what you can rent then as well? If they do that, then I can see where your argument makes sense. But if you can rent everything...
I mean, they will have to do that. I mean, in some form, one or the other.
Yeah.
Maybe it will cost more UAC
or if you wreck it and damage it, repairs are more expensive, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're actually seeing my point of view right now.
I am, yeah. Well, yeah, listen, I don't argue my point of view to death until it dies and then say, fuck you, you're wrong. I listen to what you say, and if it makes more sense, then I have no problem flopping over to your point of view.
Well, like, of course, that's how a debate should work.
Hopefully, but, that's not how it works in a lot of situations. Most people just do the whole F you and end the conversation. But yeah, I mean, I can see value in renting there, as long as I think if they limit what ships you can rent, I think it might be okay. But yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So back to 3.5. Should we have more progression? No, it's not the patch for that currently.
When is it going to be the patch?
Well, clearly 3.6 and forward, according to the roadmap.
Yeah. But nothing on the roadmap from what I can tell really screams progression though. Like what
How
sticks
about
out to
physical
you?
inventory?
Sure. But we have inventories now. But none of the items cause you to want to work towards them.
Yes, because we can carry everything at once. But maybe when we have physical inventories and limited space, maybe we'd want to work towards armor and everything.
Okay.
Since you won't be able to carry it everywhere.
Let me ask you this question, and since you're the only caller in the list, I have no problem going a little bit longer with your call. Is physical inventories are, as far as I see, they are only your character, not your ship, not the ammo that you have for your ship, not your cargo that you're holding, just
That is correct.
you. Where is the actual progression in Star Citizen?
What do you mean where the progression is with physical inventory?
No, in general, where do you think most of the progression in Star Citizen will be? Will it be on your characters, or will it be on with ships and
both of them actually?
Okay.
You will want a bigger ship to carry more stuff with you, and you will want more stuff with you to be better protected and more effective.
Do you think that our inventories will be on our ships, or do you think our inventories will actually be in a hangar?
That is a good question, and I do not have an answer.
I believe that our actual inventories will be in a hangar, not in our ship. I think the inventory that you bring with you on whatever missions or however long you are away from home, quote unquote, will be your limited inventory. But I do think that our inventories will be our hangars or our owned space on a moon or something like that. We'll have...
Yes, but you have to remember, you won't be able to carry everything at once, so you will be limited.
Of course. Of course. But when, in terms of your armor, okay, you can currently buy... Let's go back to ships. I get what you're saying with the physicalized inventories, but let's go back to the ships for 3.5 and 3.6 and so on, because we have no knowledge of it changing the way you currently buy items in the game now. Okay? The way you buy items in the game now is some items are in one location and some items are in another, but every item is available for you to purchase. Obviously, like I said earlier, there's only, I guess, mid to low grade items that are purchasable right now, and there are no high grade items that are purchasable. There is no item that is locked behind any sort of reputation wall or anything like that, and for obvious reasons, the game's not really there. So now I'm diving into a little bit more work that needs to go into making the progression in Star Citizen. I would argue that if you feel that 3.6 is a patch where progression should start and further down the line, I feel that somewhere during this year, on this year's roadmap, between 3.6 and 3.8, we should be seeing something where the inventories at shops should be reputation based.
I agree.
And I don't see that anywhere. So the issue is, maybe I asked the wrong question in the title. Not should we have more progression in Star Citizen, are they doing it wrong? Like, where everything is available or it's not available at all. So, for example, some ships, you can't buy them in the game at all. And then when it comes to the ship components, you can buy all of them, right? So it's like with no in-between and no work towards it. And that's where that's more where I take issue than with the fact that we don't have more of it. Do you see? Like, that's more of my argument here than...
I can see your point of view.
Yeah.
As a player, I do agree with you. But the issue is that CIG makes most of their money from pledges. They will never do that in a...
And that's bullshit. Then why are we playing this game? Why are we talking about this game? If it's all just about them making money from their pledges, and I don't think that they have that, like, you think that they have that mentality, and I don't agree with you there. I really don't. I think it happens all the time where it looks that way, and it's because they don't do a good job communicating with us. That's the biggest problem, and that goes back to last week's episode of Answer the Call, where they don't communicate with us and they don't tell us what's going on. They claim they're open about the development, and they are. They have the developers talk about what they're working on. Great, you're amazing at that. But when it comes down to representing the game in the right way and representing the development progress in the right way, I guess they do that well. But communicating with the backers and with non-backers about what the actual project is, they don't do a good job of that. And where in the game's development they do a terrible job of explaining that. But this is definitely, we're starting to shade off topic again. So I want to kind of bring it back in. It's not about I don't think the issue is that they want to make money from pledges. I just don't think the issue. I think the issue is they don't jump in the game and play it, so they don't know what needs to be there in a lot of cases. I think they jump in the game and play, but I don't think they play it from the perspective of someone who wants to play a game and enjoy it. I think they come in and play it from, does my work or is it buggy? Okay, it works. I'm done for the day.
The question is, who are we referencing to when we say the upper management or a CIG developer?
I think it's, for me personally, I think it's it has to be both, because the management is the one who oversees what the developer is doing, but the developer is also, I think, possibly the issue here, where to be honest, I don't know, but somebody is dropping the ball in terms of the currently playable experience, because it's often shared as a game when we don't really have a playable experience right now. So they,
Agreed.
CIG, doesn't matter who they are specifically. I'd rather not call out anyone specifically.
But for example, everything being available in the shops could be a very simple reason. They just want to test the items and not put a limit on them.
Okay, and yeah, that's like the most valid response to the argument that I have is, like, for example, we have a quantum drive. It's actually supposed to be the best quantum drive if you look at the numbers, but there's a range for quantum drives for some reason. There's a heat number, there is a fuel number, and there is a range number. And the fastest quantum drive has a range that's only 700,000 kilometers. So you really can't get anywhere with it. And it's clear that range number is just bugged, I think. And so, like, there's your argument there. But I don't see why we can't add a little bit of fun into the game now. I really don't. And that's, like, fun in the terms of something to work towards. You have, like, this overarching base, and you don't have anything to do in it right now, really, except for kind of look around, do some of the missions. I think, like, the most an average player would get out of this patch is maybe about a week. And the problem with this patch in particular, 3.5, is it's been in PTU for just too long. You know?
Honestly, yeah. Honestly, the PTU phase has been long, but I can kind of understand it because it's a big patch. There's the flight rework and the RCorp, which is different.
For sure. I understand it as well. It's just, it's definitely detrimental. But again, we're getting off topic. But do you have anything else you want to add before I move to some tweets and hopefully some more calls later?
No. Okay. It has been fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. I think Gant, I'll say it right eventually. It's going to take me a while, but this is your first time calling, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. So I appreciate it, man. Good talk. I think we were very civil.
As we should be.
Of course, but sometimes I'm not. You may be civil, but I'm not all the time. Have a good one, man.
Have a good one.
Yeah. I get passionate, man. I get passionate. I'm sorry. So we have our first tweet was from our consummate tweeter. So using hashtag ATC17, guys, if you don't want to call in, that's totally fine. You can text in as well. So if you guys text in at ATC17, you can get on the call. And I'm trying to get my mouse over here so I can switch the scene on. There we go. And he says, while I would like to see progression in Star Citizen, I don't think they quite know how or in what direction they want to go this early in the development. That's an interesting thought there. I get the sense that I get the feeling that they don't know how, but then you also like have the I forgot his name. I think his name is Jake. Remember when we had an ATV with the guy who works on the economy and he talked about his spreadsheet sheets with Jared and everything? That guy seemed really, really cool. He also seemed to know exactly what direction they were going in, right? And my argument here is they absolutely know what direction they're going in. That's why we only have B-grade components at a maximum. And I think that's why we have the ship prices the way they are, because they know where they want to be at the end. My kind of thing that I've been saying for the whole show is okay, I'm glad you know where you want to be at the end. Totally fine, man. Why don't you make it a little bit more fun in the now and keep your plans for the end? But for the short time, it's like, why don't you give me a carrot? Just give me a carrot and let me chase it. And I feel like that there just isn't a carrot to chase unless you create it. And I'm creative. I can come up with ideas for me to enjoy the game. Speaking of that, keep an eye out for my Aurora. Like, I'm going to start with the Aurora in 3.5. I said I was going to do it in 3.4, but there was too many issues with persistence with that. I'm going to chase that carrot in the Aurora, and I actually think it's going to be a pretty fun series that's going to be on this YouTube channel. We're going to start with an Aurora, and we're just going to move our way up from that. And we're going to progress actually slowly, where we're going to start with an Aurora, upgrade our components, upgrade to an Aurora LN, upgrade the components, and go from there. I think it'll be a lot of fun and quite a long series. And eventually maybe we get a Hammerhead or something. Who knows? But it's just, I wonder why they can't move away from where they want to be at the end, because we know the end is so far away. Let's have the now be a little bit more enjoyable. And I think we'll be fine. But yeah, that's just kind of my like thought process on that. So I really hate the title. Should we have more progression in Star Citizens? Because that's not really what I mean. Because they added progression and they did a really good job with this patch. But the idea of I don't have a carrot to chase is more of the thing that I take issue with. And then our next tweet, because I don't think we have another caller yet. We may be getting one in a second. I saw that in Twitch chat. This is from Aimless. And he says, progression is wasted work without persistence. Why frustrate each reset? Base mechanics missing means extra work that will have to be replaced, i.e. components altered to be different. Doesn't fit with having slotted elements. ATC 17. Focus on basic mechanics for now. Well, I wish I can ask this follow-up question. That's the only thing that kind of stinks for the tweets. Maybe he can tweet back at us. What do you mean by basic mechanics? Just like the background, like something like persistence at being a basic mechanic? Because I think component progression would be a basic mechanic. And so what if it resets every now and then? Now, every time there's a reset, you pop in, you have your Aurora, or let's say you even start with a Hornet, and you don't have the really cool guns that you like, and you have to go earn them, right? So there's like the argument on making certain components useful in different situations somehow. I really don't have an answer of how to do that right now, but the other one would be, and this is not the right answer, I think. It's the kind of future answer towards maybe the end of the year or sometime in the beginning of next year, where some components would be locked behind some sort of progression wall of like a mission giver or a certain amount of money purchased from a shop or or like bought at a shop and so on, right? Like I bought 1,000 grenades, so then now I can purchase a different type of grenade or something like that. Something silly, But yeah, that's really all I have for this. Today is pretty slow on the conversation side of things. So if you guys want to chat a little bit more about this, I don't mind reading some things from Twitch chat, but I don't like that it won't really be on the screen. Since this week's show's a little bit slower. Again, like I said earlier, I'm struggling to find things to discuss on Answer the Call. So this would be the best time to say that in the I think it's in the top. Oh, we do have a caller. Cool. Thank you guys. But I will say this now is that we do have a hashtag Answer the Call or ATC topic suggestions in our Discord. And the Discord is linked in the video description below if you're watching on YouTube. And just give some suggestions there. Usually I like things to be like kind of polarizing where I'll have an opinion and people will differ from my opinion or agree with it, but not really like anywhere in between. Polarizing topics are pretty good for discussion, I think. So try and lean towards that. And that's what's kind of hard is we're in Star Citizen 3.5, which is totally like a waiting game patch. And it's like, I'm super fine with it. But as far as like discussion topics for the show, it's definitely like, well, 3.5 is a nice step in the right direction. But I'm really looking forward to 3.6 and what they do with this, and this, right? Where 3.5 was like, okay, flight model, cool. It's not super easy to have a discussion with the flight model, I think, without actually playing it, right? Maybe I should have some combat people on the show and really just chat about that and see what their thoughts are for next week. Maybe I'll get see if I can get some combat guys on. But anyway, we have another caller, so let me fix the scene for him, and we'll get him on. And it looks like another first-time caller, which is pretty neat as well. Photoshop, work one time. All right, and here we go. It's Arrogance. Arrogance, what's up, man? You're on Answer the Call.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing? Is this your first time calling?
First time caller.
Awesome, man. 2 first-time callers today. Sweet. So what are your thoughts on this? Like, should we have more progression or more along the lines of like, I need a carrot, man. Where's my carrot?
Well, there's always more room for more progression, isn't there?
Yes, but if there was, how would you put it into a patch like 3.5? Like, always assume that you kind of want to limit the amount of work on a dev. Like for me, I felt like you could have changed. Yeah. I felt like you could have changed a few numbers in a spreadsheet and had
the best
progression
bang for
there.
Your buck.
Yeah, because obviously you could say, well, they should have done this, and it's like a year's worth of work when we say it. It comes out of our mouth in 3 seconds, but it's a year's worth of work for them, and that's not really fair.
I haven't had a chance to play much of 3.5 yet.
Okay. That really doesn't matter for this topic, though.
Yeah. To be fair, to look at it historically, look at the old the Wing Commander Privateer games.
Yeah.
There was progression in being able to buy components for your ship, upgrade your ship, to be able to take on harder and better, more valuable missions and do them fast.
When you blew up in that game, did you lose everything?
In that game, it was you blow up, game over, you reload from restart. Reload to your last save.
Ah, that's right. Yeah, because it wasn't persistent. Yeah.
No autosave back in the day. Oh, fun boy.
Yeah, man. I love that game too. Privateer 2 was one of my favorites.
I never had a chance to get Privateer 2 to work on my machine.
Dude, I tried to play it on this machine, and it has like crazy deinterlacing. It sucks. Because like the video scenes, like the cutscenes, were like so important for it. But yeah.
Yeah, I did play Freelancer. In fact, I just recently went through it again. Big old nostalgia trip.
Oh yeah, I did that pretty recently too, and that's another game that had pretty solid progression, and I see them going towards that in this game. But it's weird.
Of course, it's kind of the natural. There's a natural progression.
But in that game, was it in both of the games actually, was the progression limit because of the price of the components?
In Freelancer, it was all the price of the components, and your level was dependent upon that. Also, during your single-player campaign, it was also dependent upon mission stuff. And heaven help you if you went dramatically over the mission limit in money funds, because then you could screw up your campaign by having too much money, and you won't be able to level up afterwards. It was pretty bad for me.
That's pretty funny. But so, would you argue that the ACOM Starheart, I don't know what its price in game is off the top of my head. It's a size 1 component, but it's the best size 1 power plant. Would you argue that if you were going to do something like that, just make it really expensive?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. There's a big difference between, the engine of Volkswagen Beetle and that of a Formula F1 race car. I mean, humongous difference in cost. You have to have a whole team to deal with one. And, also there's a difference in lifespan between the components. That Formula F1 engine is only good for a couple of races before it goes out and craps a bit. Or, can't perform at its peak performance again.
Agreed. Now, that specific component that I'm talking about is a competition grade component, right? It was something that maybe racers would use. But it's more along the line, I would imagine, since it's a B grade component, that it's like the thing you would put in, like that douchebag at the stoplight puts in his Honda Civic.
The racer.
Yeah, it is a upgraded component from stock, but it's not that far ahead of it, right? So
there's the economy form of everything.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we have in the game right now. So I see the reason, and this goes back to what I said earlier, is I see the reason why the prices are what they are, because that's kind of what that component is, right? Where it's not the super high end that you would see in a Ferrari, because it's not an A, or if there is above an A grade component, it's not above that, like a special or something like that. But
it was the Japanese games would be platinum or and it'd be AAA or whatever. Yeah,
exactly, right. It's not a legendary component or something, right? But the idea that I would say is that is our legendary component in the game right now. So why not make it like really, really expensive, and then it's something to work towards. And when you lose it, it's like, damn. And then when you don't have it, you see the difference, so you want it, and then you keep playing so you could get it, And then so that's kind of like I wish that's where my thing is like, you could have done that and just changed the price, and then you're gonna lower the price of it when other components come in.
Yeah, and I agree. There needs to be noticeable effects, but that's one of the hardest things. Is like, okay, how do you do that? Have a noticeable effect when you can also see a noticeable effect between ships. I mean, components are they going to be allowed to be able to create an Aurora that's stronger than a Vanguard or something like that?
Well, that's the funny thing now, is an Aurora could kill a Vanguard. A stock Aurora could, and that's the other argument that I was making. And this is something where it's like, ooh, we may not be this might not be the right conversation for that, and we may not be in the right place where
game balance is a difficult, tricky thing. I mean, you've seen it all over the years. Okay, they've nerfed this and it's ruined the game. They've improved this; it's much better now. And it's this constant rubber banding, and the more things you add to it, the more complex it gets. So I'm not surprised that they haven't tackled it, because it is an humongous thing to do. But you're right; they could just be playing with it and getting it wrong all the time if they want to.
Yeah, and I even go more along the lines of, we don't really have like a new player area. So like, you can't say, okay, you can fly an Aurora and you can progress here, right? So that's where it's like, well, the Aurora can kill this ship because if you only have an Aurora, you can't play, and then everyone argues that the game's pay to win.
And we go back to the best bang for the buck again.
Yeah, and that's not what they want, and that's not what I want, and I think that's bad. So the idea of that an Aurora can actually progress in the game, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the original Privateer had that god-awful ship you started out with. What was that called? And it had like the tiniest little window for you to look through. And the first thing you did in that game is you wanted to was get out of that freaking awful ship.
Yeah, but I also don't
because everything was better than it.
Well, I guess, okay. That's the other thing is, and we can get off topic for just a second and talk about this. Should that be what the Aurora and the Mustang are?
Well, the starter ship should always be something you want to progress out of.
Yeah.
But
should they just be terrible? Because they're not. I love both. I don't love the Mustang. I love the Aurora.
They shouldn't be absolutely horrendous. There should be some fun to be able to have in the kiddie pool area.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like when I go back onto another game, like was it World of Tanks or whatever, pull out the Panzer III and start making circles around big heavy tanks. It's fun. Mm-hmm. There's fun to have, but you can't do that outside the kiddie pool area. Otherwise, you get stumped.
Yeah. And that's a situation where it's like, okay, well, we're not in a place where we can even have that discussion because we don't have the kiddie pool and we don't have the big boy pool or any the deep end yet. So
and I think we need multiple star systems before we can do that, or we have to segregate star systems into different areas, which I am not sure if that's going to be their goal.
I think it already is, right? We already have I
guess they could do it with Planet.
Hurston has their own security and their own kind of pirates, and I think that kind of stuff is coming. I don't think that's too far away. But let's get back onto things. The one thing that I haven't seen anyone really argue yet is that a lot of people already own a lot of ships. So you just go and you swap components. You go and you just swap a component from a higher end ship and put it in a lower end ship, and now you see some slight improvement. And is part of the fact that I feel like there is no progression because I own too many ships and I don't have to buy the item. And that's why I want to I am not going to play on my account that isn't the only Aurora. Like, I only have an account that has just an Aurora on it. When 3.5 goes live, I'm not going to play on any other account than that. That's it.
That makes perfect sense because you're right.
Because I think I'm skewed.
The Carrack off the bat, they're gonna not have the same emerging gameplay experience, starting from ground zero, working their way up. And frankly, I'd like to see the ground zero of the game not be with a starship. I think you should be able to. You'd start on the ground on a planet and work your way up to a starship. I mean, if you want to add some extra progression to the game, going down to below zero would be great.
That's crazy, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that'll happen. I don't know if that should be the starting point necessarily, but as far as the, if you screw up, that's where you start over again,
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
Potentially, But I think the biggest problem that I have is that first world problems, I guess, but I own too many ships, and it's easy to just take. It's easy to just take the better weapons that the meta weapon right now and take it off of a ship that I already own and put it on the one that I'd like to use, and I'm not required to go in the game and earn money to be able to purchase those. And when I lose them, I have to purchase them again, because obviously the way the game works right now is there's no recovery of what you've lost when your ship explodes. Because obviously when your ship explodes, some of those components could be salvageable in terms of you can find them again and place them on your ship, or a player who's killed you can place them on their own. And that's just another piece that it's just not quite there yet, which is why I think just the argument of the best components, maybe make them really expensive and just go about it from there.
Well, I mean, the best components, and there should be a couple different kinds of best components. Like we're talking about the difference between that guy who put the ricer with the on his Honda Civic equivalent versus, the guy who's actually got the F4 Formula One thing. It should be really expensive to run a Formula One part. But there should be an economy version out there. So, people who don't like that, dealing with the constant tweaking of, systems there,
Yeah, for sure.
But the issue is that right now there's no way to progress up ships, and there's not much progression available in components, is there?
No, and I'm sort of okay with that.
Is there even a progression of missions? I haven't even tried much on the missions yet.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where I started the show with that is they did a wonderful job with mission progression over the last 2 patches. In 3.4, it was either 3.3 or 3.4, I can't remember, where you would start low on the box missions, where you would make 1,500 credits, and then you would go all the way up to about 8,000 credits that you would make based on, after a while, if you did a few of them, they started giving you longer distance missions and you made more money. So that was the initial progression a few patches ago. But now you can see with bounty and assassination missions, and there may be other missions too, that there's more progression, but the bounty and the assassination ones are the ones that I've seen so far and tested so far, is that after you complete a bounty, the next mission is 1,000 credits more, and it caps at 10,000 credits per mission. It starts at 5,000, and
the only
ships you fight are harder.
Bigger missions up until a point.
Up until a point, yeah, but
difficulty level.
Yeah, so it's mission difficulty because you technically, obviously the NPCs aren't that difficult right now, but I imagine eventually the type of components that they may have are. Because for those of you guys that don't know, typically the NPCs that you fight against are using components that we can't buy. They're D-grade components. So they're
components or whatever. Yeah,
so they're lower quality, so you can actually kill them. And
that's always kind of been an annoying part. Is you can see it's just a crutch, but they don't have the AI there yet.
Yeah, so. Once it's there, and once the progression for us is there,
territory. Honestly,
they don't need to do that.
Yeah. So. But as you can see right now, there's no real noticeable difference in components. There's some in the weapons, but
there is, but it's not significant enough, right? I put on a different shield on my Aurora, and I definitely saw that I can take a few more hits. So it's noticeable, but do you think it maybe is that there's no comparable screen in the UI? Is that I just kind of had a little epiphany.
Having the raw numbers right there in front of you can definitely sell the point for you.
Yeah, and even though you may not be able to feel it that well, if you see it on a graph, it's that matters so much more than anything. Is that really the difference here? Is that why we're having this conversation? Because I don't have a graph in my UI?
Numbers really help. Look at all. Name an MMO or RPG without numbers.
That's true, right? And the game, I really hate the games that require you to go to a third party to figure this shit out. I've been playing a lot of Escape from Tarkov, and they do that.
Everyone talks about acceleration and tenths or hundredths of a second.
Yeah.
You got your horsepower, your foot pounds. It just puts things in relative scope that you can compare.
Exactly.
And so they need to put that on paper there for everyone to see, and that would probably help some of that too.
Yeah.
It's because there are a lot of times otherwise you're just guessing, and you could put whatever impetus you want to put on that. People look at things negatively or positively. It's what's that called? The placebo effect. There you go.
Yep.
And right now, all we have is placebo, so it's whatever's bias is on right now. But if you have the hard numbers there, you could tell, okay. That is slightly better.
Yeah, and there are hard numbers for those of you guys that don't know, and I'll link this in the description. Is there's some people who scrape the numbers from the builds and they put them into a chart, and you can look at them. His name is Malagos that does it, and I know he has some friends that help him with the scraping, I think. And he's made a website. I can't remember the name of the website off the top of my head, but I know another website that takes his numbers and puts them into a little bit easier of visual. And it's called hardpoint.io. And you can
takes it out of the psychological, puts it in the hardpoint. That's pretty cool for him.
Yeah.
Cool of him.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a third-party thing, and I think it just a simple little graph in the game would do it. But at the same time, I say simple, but we all know that UI is something that they're really behind on and struggle with at CIG.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to be it's simple. You know what I mean? But
having watched the internet grow up from the mid '90s, from terrible web pages to today, I could tell you that there's a lot to making a good, easy to navigate interface. It's not easy,
of course. So as far as is a chart what we really need? I think we may have answered that might be the question. That's the answer to the question. Is a chart what we really need, or some numbers? And if that's the case, and I think that might really be the answer, then it's just a matter of us being patient and for them getting to it, And that's not something you can be upset that it's not there, because it's a UI thing and we know they're behind
the
on
alpha, and we have to be patient.
Exactly.
It's all numbers.
And that's something where I'm comfortable saying I will be patient, We
also have to have more than just ship rentals in order to progress in ships too, because there's got to be more than just progression in components and missions. There's got to be character progression of some sort, although they might be playing a good line of not really having noticeable character progression if everyone's kind of equal in that area.
Well, they do, because you progress with the mission givers and stuff. Like, you're starting to see it, but it's so early.
Reputation could be your progression for your character.
It will be. Like, there's no denying that it will be. It will be.
Yeah, that might be enough. I mean, no EXP system, I think, is interesting, and I think might be actually a real nice way of dealing with some of the problems that other games run into with that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the ships though, and right now they won't touch that one until they have some way of other way of monetizing the game, because right now ship sales is their bread and butter.
Okay, yeah, and that goes back to what Gant said, is that it'll break their bottom line. So until they can come up with a way to fund the game otherwise, you think that we won't see that kind of progression in the game yet? We won't see more ships for sale in game?
Probably not. There's two ways they could do it. Once the inventory system is permanent enough and reliable enough, then they can actually rely upon monetary sales, the in-game cash sales, and your items to stay there. And then you could switch that. Or Squadron 42 sales could be, if you just done some quick, napkin math, holy cow, they can make some tremendous cash off of that. They might be able to fund a significant part of the MMO and the next game in the series from just that sales alone. It really depends on how many millions of sales they get.
Yep, that's really true. And it really goes back to what Gant said, and you just kind of put it in a little bit more of a box that I could comprehend a little bit better, I guess. I agree with both of you guys that to answer the question, should we have more progression in Star Citizen 3.5? I'm starting to lean towards, well, maybe not until they come up with a better idea to fund the game. And I mean, I think that they should be starting to put cosmetics in the game now and funding it that way personally. And I hope that's the way they go. Little things like, oh wow, hey guys, look at all these things that physicalize in your hangar. Well, guess what? If you buy those things and put them in your hangar, they physicalize there, they stay there, you can buy them, you know what I mean? So now sell those things for like $5 a pop. Buy your turtles, boys, exactly. So that's the kind of thing. They could do that
as well. They could even actually let you buy ships and do a great wipe from the beta there, and you won't have any of the cash you earned from beta. You'll just have to start with the starter rewards. But again, that also requires permanence in your inventory.
Yeah, that's true. So until that happens, they really can't sell.
Yeah, with frequent wipes and stuff like that, that's not going to be something that they're going to be focusing on. So it's a bit too early, I think, to focus on that, which is a shame, because it'd be nice to have it now, because somebody had in the chat earlier mentioned that it could help draw in more players if the game was more playable and enjoyable.
Yeah, of course. And that's super important. I know it matters to them, and which is why I have this discussion all the time. It's because I know concurrency matters to them. They mention it all the time on their shows. So the way to get concurrency is to make your game more fun. So I always try on this show to have you guys and have a discussion about what are some small tweaks that we can do to make the game more fun. And it's not like me being salty and saying the game sucks and I need more content for my stream or anything like that. It really isn't. It's just like how do we make the game a little bit more fun? And I always lean towards like what are the small things that we can do? It doesn't have to be like this incredibly large, game mechanic, like something like salvaging that needs to come in to make the game more fun. It's, how do we make the game a little more fun? That's it. But anyway, Arrogance, I have a couple of more tweets to go through, and I think that'll probably be it for the show. So I appreciate your call, man, and thank you. I hope to see you on a call soon. I think we had a really, really awesome discussion.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime, man.
Take care.
Bye now. All right, so our next tweet, let's see if this is like a smooth transition. It may be, it may not be. Oh, it is. Ooh, that was good. Is from Enter the Void, and he used hashtag ATC17 to text into the show, basically, and he says, we don't have any stats progression for a long time, but since everything is, we haven't had any stat progression for a long time, but since everything is changing, should we also get some physical stats to get progression? I don't want to struggle in medium armor and a weapon on my back always with stamina. I need some kind of slow progression, in my humble opinion. Ooh, this is a really interesting thing, and maybe back and forth I can discuss with Twitch chat a little bit. What do you guys think about this? Is now he's talking about adding statistics to your character. Like, does your stamina get better over time when you're running around in heavy armor? Ooh, I don't know about that one. That one's a little... I'm going to say no. But I see where you're going from. But now we're starting to get into RPG style, and a lot of Twitch chat is saying no. If you guys got to this point of the show on YouTube, let me know what you think about this one. I think Enter is hitting on something that could be really interesting, but also isn't what Star Citizen said they would be. I know for something like, again, I usually talk about games that I'm playing a lot regularly. Tarkov is a game that I'm, Escape from Tarkov, for those guys that have never heard of it, is a game that, like, the real game is like looter shooter, but at the same time, Tarkov does, like, stats that, like, gradually go up as you use them. You know? So it's... yeah. It's kind of rough. And people are saying, like, you can cheese those stats in Tarkov as well, which is like, eh. So I don't know, man. Pappy Poynton in Twitch chat says it's a slippery slope, and I kind of agree with them there. So yeah, it's a little bit iffy. So we have another tweet from Dapper Lee as well. And Dapper Lee uses hashtag ATC17 and says, do you think a proper quest line to unlock ships to purchase would be viable means for progression, or even grinding mining with a mining ship that you have to unlock by other means would be something that would take grinding ships to another level? I like the idea of quest lines, but I'm not sure what you mean by grinding mining. Unless we had mining missions in the game. But basically, the reputation system that we have in the game now, I think they can work towards this, and I imagine that's part of their end game goal anyway, you know? Sure. But I think this is more of like a down the line kind of discussion, right? Where this is something that I think we all know will eventually come down the line, and I'm more wanting to have a discussion today about how do we fix it in the short term? This is totally a way to fix it in the long term, and I think everyone would agree that, or at least most people would agree, that that's a cool way of doing it, or the way I would expect them to do it, right? So yeah. Like, I don't know, the Hurston Dynamics guy, you know, you do a bunch of missions for him, and maybe you get a discount on the weapons in the store, and then you do a bunch more, and now he is like, hey, we're working on this this secret project for a new weapon. How would you like to test it out for us, you know? Like, I think those things are going to happen. Yeah. So I think that probably does it for today's show. So I just want to say thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'm trying to keep the shows around an hour, and I think that's right about where we are. And yeah, I think we had a really nice discussion where I'm a little bit less on the, we could have put progression in this game. CIG dropped the ball, which is kind of how I felt towards the beginning of the show, where the guys who we discussed have kind of brought me around a little bit, where it is, like, again, it's important that the game gets funded, and I think a lot of the decisions that they make are to ensure that the game continues to get funded. I think that at times that's at a detriment to us, which sucks, but at the same time, is that short-term detriment should eventually be... Oh, thanks, Silo. I didn't see you were here yet. I think that short-term detriment is for our benefit in the long term, right? And yeah, I don't know. I don't really know the answer in the short term. Is it just like making things more expensive and creating a wider gap between the components, or is it simply just a waiting game for them to implement something like what Dapper Lee and a few others said? Is that maybe we should have quest lines or some sort of some sort of reputation or level before we can buy certain components, and that's more of a thing that needs to be coded into the game, I guess. And it takes a lot more dev time than just a simple, hey, tweak a few numbers and see how it goes in the patch kind of thing. The one thing that I really, really, really think that they dropped the ball on, and we'll end here, is like I said earlier, and I don't think there's any argument against this, is having the exact same ships from 3.4 purchasable in-game in 3.5, with the addition of 1 in ArcCorp, sucks. I really think that ship rotations would be really beneficial to them and really fun for us. So I would like to see in the future them go, okay, all the ships that were purchasable besides a select few, which are important, specifically the Prospector, are out. Add a couple new ones in, and have it be like, oh, I get to try this ship now, you know? Like, I didn't get to try this ship in 3.4, I get to try it in 3.5, right? And I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I think that that's something that's totally doable, you know? So hopefully that one gets to somebody at CIG. I'm looking at you, Silo. But I think that one is something that could be really cool. And I wonder why they wouldn't do something like that personally. You know, maybe they just didn't think to do it, you know? Maybe just the addition is something that's pretty neat that they thought. But I think it would be even neater if they swap things in and out. Even if it wasn't all of them and it was just a few, you know? But anyway, guys, as always at the end, you know, the whole YouTube thing. If you guys liked the video, hit the like button. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down button, although it would make kittens cry. And then hit subscribe if you like this video and you want to see more videos like this in the future. I do want to take this time out and say I want to work more on my YouTube channel, and I definitely dropped the ball myself this week on not putting out some videos. And then, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Leave a comment below on what some of the people that what they said and what your thoughts on what little things can be done to make progression a little bit more enjoyable in 3.5 and maybe the soon succeeding patches. All right, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Enjoy your Sunday, everybody.